this is what we will be discussing in this session. So this will give you an idea as to what all we will discuss. Now, if you see number 1, we will discuss about the software requirements for e-filing. I used to always tell this in Kannada. ಮುಂಚೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ಫೈಲಿಂಗ್ ಇತ್ತು, ಆ ಫೈಲಿಂಗ್ ಹೋಗಿ ಈ ಫೈಲಿಂಗ್ ಬಂತು. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಆ ಫೈಲಿಂಗ್ ಇತ್ತು ಅವಾಗ, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಆಲ್ ಮ್ಯಾನ್ಯುಯಲ್ ಫೈಲಿಂಗ್ಸ್. ಆ ಫೈಲಿಂಗ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಹೋಗಿ ಈ ಫೈಲಿಂಗ್ ಬಂದಿದೆ. ಏನ್ ಈ ಫೈಲಿಂಗ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಾನಿಕ್ ಫೈಲಿಂಗ್. ಅಂಡ್ ಆ ಫೈಲಿಂಗ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ವಿ ಯೂಸ್ ಟು ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಕ್ಯೂ with DD. We had to take a DD in favor of ROC and stand there, and that fellow will scold. Adeno attachment seri illa, adu seri illa, hogu vapasu anta. All the queue gone. Again go, again change everything, again come back, stand in the queue. This is how we had in our filing alli. Our filing hogi ivaga e-filing has come. That is electronic filing. Oh, first when they introduced e-filing, for us, our filing hodmele e-filing was like full ಅಂತ e-filing ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೂತಿ ಜಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಕ್ಲಿಕ್ ಆಗೋಯ್ತಾ ಅಂತ. So we were so happy when we started e-filing. Because initially when e-filing started, it was with a different vendor. If I'm right, it was TCS, I think. It is Tata Consultancy Services which was in charge of this, and like how they are clapping, we all clapped. Yeah, for now chalo ಅವ್ರಿಗಿಂತ ಜೋರಾಗಿ ಕ್ಲಾಪ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಒಂದು ರೌಂಡ್ ಜೋರಾಗಿ ಅದು ಅವ್ರ ಮಾತ್ರನ. So when we started with e-filing, we were extremely happy because the system was fabulous. Those who are aware, from manual filings to e-filings, it was fantastic. The seamless transition was beautiful. And then started toyo ankondo. Yeah, then it started all the problems of e-filing. It started wherein sometimes we feel queue only was better anta. Atla kada queue na log nintkondo, we go stand in the queue, file and come only sometimes seems better. That stage we reached. Now what we will be discussing for all of you is here. Number 1, what are the software requirements if you have to do e-filing? Second, incorporation forms. Third, forms requiring certification checklist. This is important for us, correct? Because if we have to certify a form, we should know which forms we should certify, which forms we need not certify. Plus, we should know how to certify, who should certify, and what is the checklist we should have before I do a certification. So we'll talk about that. Compliance calendar, I will discuss about what are the main forms which has to be taken care for any client. So I'll give you one compliance calendar telling you that these are the forms you have to take care for any filings. And then event-based forms, I'll tell you some of these event-based forms based on the respective events. And then procedure for, now this is important for all of us. Because some of these things we will all know, but these things we will not know. What is that? Procedure for cancellation. I filed one form. When I say I filed, I mean article would have filed. One of the assistant would have filed. Then you ask him, why did you file? He said, it was there, I filed. Yeah, adittu ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟೆ ಅಂತ. Now the problem is, how do you cancel that form? Because it has been filed wrongly. Now how do I cancel? So therefore we need to learn about cancellation of that form. Or he has simply filed which is an incomplete form. Then how do I modify that form? Then what is the positions for resubmission? Now this is important for all of us. So we need to learn on cancellation, modification, resubmissions, rejection of a form, what I should do if there's a rejection. Then forms which affect the master data. These are all simple ones. That is, once you file a form, how it reflects in the master data of the MCA portal. And then the post-filing of forms, then MCA ticket raising. If you have a concern, how do you raise a ticket with MCA? Conductor. Before conductor used to raise tickets, now we will also raise tickets, and then forms which are at nil fees. Nil fees, ade one rarity. Because I always tell, in Kannada we say, at ROC, nothing is OC. Nothing is OC at ROC. For everything, there is a filing fees. There's a filing fees, there is additional fees, there is normal fees, additional fees, then ad valorem fees and all for charges. If you don't file on time, all that is there. So a lot of fees is there, but some forms are there which are without fees. So this is the discussion we are going to have today. Am I very clear as to what all we'll be discussing? So in this, these are the ones which will be extremely important for all of you. That is, how do we cancel a form, modify if something goes wrong and somebody, one of your articles has simply filed it, then what do you do in that case? So we need to know about all this. But starting with software requirements. So what are the software requirements that is there? Before I walk into all that, one latest news is what I would like to discuss. Latest news is the interview of Sri Rajesh Verma, Secretary of MCA, right? I hope you know he is the chairperson of Company Law Committee, which is coming out with the new Companies Act types of 2022, wherein they talked about, recently we had one session also on Company Law Committee by Sundareshan sir was taking a session also. Government, no, this is something very important for all of us, okay? Because look at the thought process of the chairperson of Company Law Committee. He is telling government to launch random e-scrutiny of corporate filings. Finished. Exactly word, correct word. He said done. Right? Government to launch this. That is e-scrutiny of corporate filings. MCA is set to launch random electronic scrutiny of corporate filings later this year itself. That means this year itself going to check all your forms which has been, some of them to, you in fact, some of them you know how they discuss in office. Straight through process, right? Because anyway it is under the straight through process. You know, we have the straight through process where there is no approval required. Now it will come. Now it will come. All will start coming now because there is a random, electronic scrutiny. There will be, look at this, random sampling of the returns. Computer driven scrutiny will be similar to income tax scrutinies. That means now that's what I told you just before the break. This now MCA will be competing with income tax to see who will get more revenue. Your revenue is more or my revenue is more. So like that, now it is becoming a revenue legislation slowly. MCA revenues are not going to be anything less at all. So here we are telling, that means random scrutiny means it is not subjective. That means system will simply generate. Any file can be taken up for scrutiny. So whichever forms you have filed for your client can be taken up for scrutiny, which means moral of the story, two things. Number one, you should be very careful in filing the forms. Second, charge more fees. Tell the client saying that lot of responsibility is on me because tomorrow scrutiny will come. They will ask me saying that how you file, especially where we have to certify the forms. Now, as it is, we are already in the target. For everything, we are being targeted. Now, one more target will come here, saying that CAs have been filing like this. They've been certifying the forms. They're blindly doing it. All that will start. Like we were just discussing, I think during the lunch break. I think we were discussing saying that the government will first tell you did not do this. You didn't do that also. You have to check all this, no? Why you didn't check that? Like this only people are filing? Correct. 100 things we are doing correctly. That nobody is telling. 100 things correctly we are doing, no? That nobody wants to discuss and recognize at all. Only telling that this you did mistake, that you did mistake. See? So it all starts like that only. So we're only interested in saying you did this mistake, you did that mistake. Now imagine, no, if we are this side and keep the MCA that side. Put MCA that side and we will stand this side and say, see your website, see your law, see the circulars, see the notification, see the interpretation. Yeah, what is this? Right? Correct, no? Correct, right? So let us talk about what is good, no? That's a chance. That is why, correct? Ultimately, we have to take it. No, it's nothing wrong. No. You were thinking like that, is it? Now, ulta kelbodu. Especially the LLP forms. Yeah. Don't ask me questions on LLP forms. If you're asking questions, my answer is yes, so that's all is my answer. Okay. So don't ask me on LLP forms. So therefore, here, so there will be a scrutiny. I hope you're understanding this with a little bit of seriousness here. The seriousness part is it will be like income tax scrutinies. That means the forms will be scrutinized. All these years it was not there. We didn't have these issues at all. Only those cases which ROC used to raise as a rejection or some issue was there. That's all we had. Whereas now it is going to be a different story altogether because it's random scrutinies, right? This is like how we have income tax scrutinies. Any client can get a scrutiny notice. So we're talking about anybody can get a scrutiny notice here also. So scrutiny work will begin early V3. Yeah. No, V3 means MCA, Chartered Accountant, Client. So V3. So the V3 is, that is what they're talking about, right? So the three of us, now we have to see how we can work together. And they will system, it will, all red flags will come. Then red flag system will include frequent resignation by auditors. That also they want to scrutinize, saying that why frequently there are so many resignations happening of an auditor. And you know that many of these auditors resign from many of these companies, no, after all the scams happened. And then companies with low paid up capital but with high turnover. I don't know, what is your problem? I've never understood this. Why low paid up capital with high turnover? So I've never understood the logic here. Huh? No, what I'm trying to understand is, I mean, if where is it written in business that high turnover is possible only with, I've never understood, because that there is nothing like that in any business which says there has to be high capital investment for high turnover, especially with these online businesses coming. Capital beda. With zero capital also you can run. Correct? No, I can keep sourcing. You talk about JIT, just in time sourcing you do. You don't require any investment also. I say it can happen. So we are talking about capital with high turnover. I don't know what it means. Then here, look at this. Related party transaction, that is okay, I think. Related party transactions, they have every right to ask about whatever is happening in related party transaction. But I hope you understand the relevance of this session with whatever is the plan of the Secretary of MCA. So we need to be a little more careful on these matters. No, nothing to be worried. It's okay. Like this income tax only we have seen. Yeah, income tax and what is even. So yeah, that's the problem. Penalty is very, very huge in. Allah sir, they only talk in lakhs and crores in penalties. It's okay. The problem is now MCA started to send to ICA Institute telling professional misconduct. Put him under professional misconduct, and that is the problem now. So for everything they want to straight away send it to CA Institute telling that professional misconduct is there. He's not performing his duties correctly. There is negligence of his functions because he's done a attestation function. Allah. He have done certification. That is you have the other issue also coming. Penalties company will pay. But we are talking about chartered accountants also being pulled into this. Okay. We can't complain, okay? Like what sir said. We have to follow. Let's see what we can do. Because if we complain, they'll come out with one more. They'll tell, okay, the chartered accountants need not do it, we'll give it to somebody else. They'll say, Any problem will I'm not right. We will only do it. So it's okay, we will do it. Now let's start with the first one. So I think you're clear with the agenda. Right? Let me start with the first one. And software requirements is what you have to start with, all the software requirements. Because she also takes care of the technology in our office. Although we are a 500-member team in office, we are a paperless office. As a CA firm, we are absolutely paperless office, and entire thing is driven by technology only. So she knows better.
Actually, the challenge to impress on a client how to charge more fees is really tough, because the versions are coming, but they will tell you're only filing one form. How do you monetize the whole thing? So this is probably going to help us minimize our time. So throughout the day, I would have seen one article fill in his timesheet, one form of DIR 12, 4 hours. What will take him DIR 12, 4 hours? I don't understand. Because of all these technical issues, we figured out these are the ways in how you can crack this. This is going to be available for you on the institute website. So anything you're facing an issue to file the forms, please go through this. See, the operating system shall be Windows 2000 or later, mandatory. And that too, please make sure that it is not your pirated license, and all of it are licensed versions and 2000 and above, because there are known to have been problems if it is not. Then GRE. So we all took commerce because we didn't want to read these codes. But when I was reading these codes, I was feeling very important. Okay, I also know something. So JRE is Java Runtime Environment, shall be installed on the system. This is mandatory to update your DSC, because you are going to face this challenge. In the same system, you will have a GST filing system, and then in the same system, you want to file the ROC form also, it is going to give an error. So have a separate filing for GST system, have a separate system for your ROC filings to be done. That is mandatory. And this JDK or JRE Java version 8 update 92 is suggested. So possibly there is an update after this also, but update after 92 is what you're supposed to use. This is going to be given on the MCA website itself. You have all of this information, but in case you want to download also, it is available on this link. Then the browser is Chrome 49 plus or Firefox 45 plus or Microsoft Edge. So Microsoft Edge also permits you to do Internet Explorer. In fact, Microsoft themselves are removing Internet Explorer. Even ROC forms you cannot file on Internet Explorer. Do not use that. And Adobe Reader, this is the free version only. So like Raja was telling, nothing OC with ROC. Thankfully, this Adobe Reader is at least a free version you can still go ahead and use. Again, this paid versions of Adobe or any other won't work for filings or for updating DSC. That is another thing. So paid version will not work. You have to go with the free version of the Adobe itself. Then for DSC updation, another challenge is your DSC. Because the client will take one online service provider, he would have got a message, 180 rupees, somebody is issuing DSC, he'll go and take that DSC. And that DSC, he will send it to us. In fact, what he would have paid is lesser than what he would pay for dunzoing the DSC to our office. Instead, we'll tell, please get the DSC done with a known vendor. So this DSC challenges you will often face. The EM signer that is available on the MCA website itself, that is mandatory for you to be able to use your DSC correctly. ePass token software also is any one of the following ports should be free on your system. So if you have a technical person, he will help you out with it, or there are a lot of help on the internet which is available. Please ping there and then you will get the answer. But this is the port that is mandatory. If any of us are facing, then you can figure this out. Then JRE shall be installed on the system. This is mandatory to update the DSC, already told. And I already told this at the beginning. If GST M-Signer is installed, MCA M-Signer will not work. So install on separate systems or every time install and uninstall. So that is tricky. Please make sure to have your separate systems. Yeah, for now it is working. This is working, is it? You're telling GST. Oh, okay, fabulous. In our office, what they have done, all the USB ports they have removed. So the articles have to go to one particular system only, and then they can file, because data confidentiality is an issue. When people are able to use DSCs on all their system, they can copy something and go, and you won't even know what they have copied. So at least that way, some security systems, if you have, it will help to secure the client data. Forms and download sections on the MCA. This we all know, where we can download the MCA forms. Right on the home page itself, you have at the top left corner, go ahead and download all of the forms. This is self-explanatory. And each of the forms, thankfully, comes with a beautiful help kit. MCA has really put in some efforts. Of course, this is when they all introduced it initially. And step-by-step instructions are there on how to fill the form, how to file the form. That is going to be helpful for you. Please read the help kit and the description of form, version update details available here. So in our office, what we do when new people join the team, we get them to read the secretarial standards, and then second, we help them to understand how to read the forms. If you open the form and if you read it, on the left-hand side top corner, they will mention what is the provision of law you're supposed to read. Better for us to educate our team members that way, so that they will not blindly simply fill in the blanks. When I tell someone, please work on the ROC forms, they love to do it. Why? They think that it is something very dynamic and they're filling the forms. But relating to annual returns, when there is an AS 18 transaction or the related party notes to accounts, whatever would have come in the balance sheet, they still don't know how to disclose it in the form. So that way, when you ask them to read the provision of law, it becomes easier and error-free when someone is filing the forms. Truly a roller coaster ride. In fact, Incorporation has been, because Incorporation in the last 2-3 years has undergone quite a few changes, and even June 1st, we had some changes in how some of the forms have changed. So too much on Incorporation I'm not touching on. It is simply that I'm going to give you what are the overview that way. So the resubmission reasons for Spice Plus is what I'm touching on. When you file the Incorporation forms, typical reasons why incorporations could get delayed. What are the resubmission marks is what we are required to see. But thankfully, incorporations, actually before this version Galata started, all of the incorporations that we could do with local directors, local shareholders, used to happen in one day. The name approval used to happen probably the same day or the next day if we had filed it before 12 in the noon. And then incorporations were happening right the very next day if we had submitted. But now I see a delay of around 4 to 7 days. And in fact, we got very badly stuck in the DSE version only. So the new incorporation versions that they have released, we could not file it so easily. Having said this, it was quite good a few days back. Maybe it will again come back and be better going forward. The name resembles existing company or LLP name. This is one of the common reasons why we get incorporation resubmissions. What we do is we file the run form first, where we get the name approval, and then we go for incorporation. Though we have to pay that extra 1,000 fees, it is worth the effort, because then you will be able to prepare the subsequent forms easily. Otherwise, if you prepare everything in one shot and then something comes for resubmission, you have to again redo the entire thing when the name is a concern. So the master data for the same name companies, please check. And name resembles existing trademark. You have that option of checking the names on the trademark website also. Please go ahead and check there. It is quite simple that way. And if you find that there is a similar name, then you have to get the NOC from the promoter of that company. So this NOC also, they will ask you for the NOC, and the person who is giving the NOC, his address proof or PAN card proof also they ask. So if you are doing it of a group company incorporation, then you know what to ask and you file it yourself. So you don't have to worry then that it is going to come for resubmission. This first time right actually helps us a lot. As professionals, if we get our team to be trained well to do everything first time right, we don't have to put the effort to again get the same thing going. Then our profitability is better, billings are done, collections happen faster. So that is what we are aiming at in the office. So every time a resubmission comes, we have a whole dump of why the reasons of resubmissions have come up. So we make sure that the next time we are doing the same type of work, all of the resubmissions, we would have plugged those points. Same thing is happening with FCGPR resubmissions, FCTRS resubmissions. So some of the resubmissions, you know what the reasons could be. Please have all of that data ready and then proceed with the incorporation. Then class or category or subcategory of the proposed company in the web form is not matching with the nature of company. So what happens is there is a drop down where you're supposed to select. Please ensure that you correctly select. In our case, practically this had happened where it was actually a subsidiary of a foreign company. And they had to select that. They didn't do. It was a simple private company that they had selected. Everything went through. At the time of incorporation approval, they blocked it telling it was not matching, which none of us realized that that mistake had happened. But now we are very clear how to do it. This is not in the run era. It was prior to that we used to face this issue. But please make sure that your select drop down is correct. Then the activity code, please refer to NIC code which is mentioned by MCA. Don't go by the NIC code which is the 2008 code. So go by MCA, because typically MCA is coming back on these points. 55 NIC code you have mentioned, it should be for, they will ask us to mention the correct code. They will not tell us what is the correct code. Again, we'll only have to experiment and give out the correct code, that you can get it from the MCA itself. They are giving also, is it? Brilliant. So if that they are giving, then it makes our life easier. Then if the proposed name indicates words like finance, investment, capital, holding, insurance, etc., and objects are not in consonance with the same, so any NBFC activity related, you have to make sure that you are making your articles, you are making your memorandum correct with the objects clause neatly stated. And many times what we would have filed at the time of run, we forget when we are filing at the time of spice. So make sure what you're filing at the time of name approval, you have that clearly mentioned, and then at the time of incorporation also you replicate the same clause. What we also do is we make the MCA clause, that is the main object clause also we attach along with the name approval, so that we don't forget what we would have filed. That makes it easier for you. Then precautions while filing the part B. So if it is a resident, E-form, MOA and MOA, E-form, AOA is required. So if all of the subscribers to the memorandum are residents, then it has to be a E-form. If there are non-residents or a Section 8 company, physical MOA and physical AOA is required. This is one thing we need to keep in mind. Generally, it will confuse you. Why they're asking sometimes physical, why they're asking sometimes E. This is the reason. And then directors or subscribers having DIN or PAN. E-form 1, INC 9 needs to be attached. So if they have a DIN or PAN, INC 9 is sufficient. That is the E-form. If one person does not have a DIN or PAN, then the physical form INC 9 needs to be attached. That's the only difference. So the apostille and notary requirement with business visa for foreign subscribers. This is something they will ask you. Make sure that the foreign subscriber whom you're getting him as a subscriber holds a business visa. And then this notary and apostille, always that confusion will be there. Notary is for all the Commonwealth nations. Hague Apostille Convention nations all come under the apostille plus notary requirement. And anyone who doesn't require the both, then there is a one more clause under the incorporation rules which talks about you have to go to the consulate and you have to get whole lot of things done. That is what you need to take care. This has fairly become simpler now. Earlier when we started, we used to get confusion. But now the British era, whoever was there, the Commonwealth nations, simple notary like how we do in India. Every other country is apostille plus notary is how you remember this. I'll go a little fast because this is something you will all know, and any doubts we have, we can stop. And the Agile Pro, now when we are filing the incorporation forms, what are those that we are getting? The incorporation fee we charge a client could range between 50,000 to 2 lakh also. It's how you package what you are delivering to a client is what matters. Earlier, you used to charge them for a PAN separately, PT separately, PF, ESI registration, whole lot of things separately you could charge them. After incorporation, you had to take all those registrations. Now it has become easier that with all of these incorporation forms, you're going to get these numbers also. So the PAN is mandatory, TAN mandatory. It comes along with the incorporation certificate itself. Now people are facing this issue. Once the incorporation is done, you are actually not getting that emails from the income tax department. We've been following up and still we have not got a luck on them issuing the PAN to us. But in the last few months, I'm facing this issue. Otherwise, it was coming quite easily. And now the PAN card does not get issued. We only get an e-PAN. So the bankers are still living in the draconian era where they're asking, give me a copy of the PAN card. So it took us a while for them to understand e-PAN card also is acceptable. So that now the bankers are accepting. And GST, my suggestion is at least please don't file it along with the incorporation form. That is quite a mess. I know in Bangalore or Karnataka, we have the option to go and get it across the table. But in other states, when you are incorporating, we have to find or we have to actually go travel there and get it. That is a nightmare. And close to 6 months, one of our clients never got their GST. So please, our suggestion is do not do GST along with your incorporation forms. PF and ESC will come. This is again a mandatory thing that will happen. Even though your client employee headcount does not touch 10 or more or 20 or more, this number will come. It will come and sit with you. It will become, for you, you have to only do the compliance once you touch that number, not before that. So don't worry, you will not get a notice. But I have seen, that, correct. PT department, PF department. So PF department also sends, PT department also sends, and then you pay your PT on the GST portal, then also you get a notice. So a whole lot of notices are still coming, but we have to again write to them and help them understand. So this is where I'm telling that our cost of rendering service to a client is going up, while what the fee we charge to a client truly is like the cucumbers. Then also we could buy it at 20 rupees. Today also we could buy it at 20 rupees. So despite inflation and everything that we go through, the fees that we charge is still tough. So you have to package it really well to a client and help them understand that there is really this amount of efforts that goes in. In fact, incorporation is not just one incorporation and a certificate of incorporation that comes today. Post-incorporation compliances are so many. You have to do the first board meeting, you have to get the share certificate, you have to do the registered office. So for that also package in your work in such a way that this post-incorporation compliance also you charge them initially itself. Correct. You have to go and get the login credentials and password. So that you still need to do. Correct. Correct. That you still need to do. So wherever we are not able to get, so if we are able to get it on the call, that is brilliant. Otherwise, so the thing is then within 30 days of incorporation, please manage to put all of these numbers and passwords in one place. PT you can still get through, this is the Karnataka, West Bengal and Maharashtra where the registration number you are getting. In case you have not received the mails, please follow up and get it is what we think. Bank account, of course, mandatory. The bank account linking also, again, that has become a mess. We go to our own bank who we want. So that we should still do it the same way. Shops and establishments, which is mandatory in Delhi. So Bangalore is still the physical route. Physical route, you know what are your troubles which you face with these statutory authorities. So June 1st, the amendment for incorporation that has happened is with respect to the DIR 2 and DIR 3, the declaration by first director. The security clearance from MHA is required before seeking appointment as directors. This, you know, with the obvious reason of the Chinese directors coming into picture, and you don't want many Chinese directors to be on the board of the company. This provision has been introduced. Then the first subscriber declaration also is to obtain approval from the foreign exchange management rules prior to subscription of the shares. So a few of our clients, we got stuck where they had the Chinese subscribers, and you had to go through the MHA approval to get the approval and then to get the capital. That was not happening. Two of our clients had to shut down their companies that way. So now they have made it at the time of incorporation itself, get this declaration and get this approval. This is, I'm given to understand it is few nationalities. Correct, especially keeping in mind the new COVID developments that have happened. So forms requiring certification, checklist and Uden. In this, Raja, you can take this a bit and then I'll start.
Now this is about our role. We're talking about our certification. Now when it comes to our certification, somehow, especially when there's a new chartered accountant, no, fresh CA, full Josh. Because all these years as article student, he has been seeing his boss is signing, and he'll be telling his friend also, "Ella nane madid kelsa, boss mata sumna sign marbitro." Yeah, so he'll be telling his friends also, and "Ella nane madid kelsa." Simply, boss is signing that. One day when I become chartered accountant, I'll also do like that. Full Josh will be there. What we have seen is in the Josh, no, they start certifying everything the moment they become a chartered accountant. So you should be understanding that certification is not like anything, and it's not like an autograph. Autograph kodi sir anta. It's not like that you give a certification. So let's understand the importance of a certification here. So first thing to understand is we will not do certification for everything. So any form is there, please don't do a certification. That is the first thing to understand. So there are only a few forms which requires our certification. Only for that forms we'll have to do certification, number one. Now then there are certain other specific forms. For example, DPT3. DPT3 says certification should be done by auditor of the company. Correct. One more, we'll also clap. Okay. So certification has to be done by auditor of the company. So when you say certification has to be done by auditor of the company, now the question is, who is auditor of company? Not like how you all call, I don't know if you have seen, auditor officer. No, that auditor is not what we are discussing here. So here when you're talking about auditor, we're talking about 139(1) appointment. So therefore he has to be a 139(1) appointed auditor of the company. He can only do the certification. So simply just because I'm a CA, I cannot do certification. So please check some of these forms whether we should do or we should not do any certification. So very important to check that, number one. Then I'll tell you one beautiful point here. Of course, for certification, it specifically gives exemption to small companies, OPC. So you have to first check whether it's a small OPC you can make out, but otherwise you have to check whether it's a small company or not. And you know the definition has changed. It's so difficult even to say the word definition has changed. Actually, definition has not changed. I mean, technically, if you see, definition has actually not changed. Definition still says 50 lakhs and 2 crores. It's only later if you check with the rules, then we say the 50 lakhs has been increased to 2 crores and 2 crores has been increased to 20 crores. So technically, actually we don't even know how define small company. If I ask, all wrong answer only will give, because by definition it's still 50 and 2, and it's only by way of rules which says as may be prescribed, and therefore we are making it as 2 and 20. So please check that whether it is a small company or not a small company before you decide on certification. Now this is something I would like to tell here. This part, this is something which is practically done in a CA office. What is that? First, fill the entire form and declaration along with director's details. Okay, fill up the form. Second, don't fill anything in the certification part. Fill up the full form. Okay, don't do anything in certification. Chupke chhod do. As if there was, assume as if there is no certification. So fill up the entire form and leave it off as if there is no certification. And then click check form. When we were doing articleship, our seniors used to scold. And can't you see this? Yeah, or boss used to scold. Saying, they should scold. Now computer only will scold. Nobody has to scold you. Computer will scold you. Yeah, when you click check form, fully it will start scolding. Yeah, except that language is not used. Otherwise that form actually meant this column number 3 nim tata fill martara. This is like that only. Indirectly, it is the forms are telling like that only to you. Yeah, column number 3, right? The 5th column who will fill up. So it will scold. It will start scolding you. With that scolding, you will understand whether certification required or not required. Did you understand? So this is, of course, this is not the correct way of doing the work. The correct way of doing the work is please see the provision of law, read the act, read the amendment, read the section correctly, then know whether certification is required or not. But this is a shortcut. Shortcut wherein simply click the check form. It is called, okay. So then you know whether certification required or not required. If you see here, when I clicked, what did it say here? Successful. That means certification not required. This is understood. So that means successful means I don't require certification. What is this telling? Scolding. What it is telling? That is a point. So that's when you do this check form only, it will scold you. So therefore, even if you have a doubt, certification required, see, column will be there. Don't get confused. In the form, column is always there. Because if voluntarily, if you want to certify, they'll say, please. So that tomorrow when I send love letter, I'll make you also party to that love letter, they'll send. So therefore, you have to check correctly. So what I'm telling is, don't simply certify everything. Check form you see, and if it scolds you, you know that whether you have to do certification. As I said, this is not the correct way of doing it. Correct way of doing it, see the provision of law. You'll understand whether certification is required or not required, but I'm telling this is another shortcut of doing it. Then there is something called touch me not. I don't know if you have seen in parks. Have you seen the plant is there? Touch me not plant, wherein if you touch it will hold. We all used to do that. Touch madi adu full fold agtade. Like that, there is a touch me not in this MCA forms. Suppose certification is not required, but you clicked, finished, perfect. Now whether you like it or not, you have to certify. So you have to know. I know, download again and first in the. Like how we used to play cricket match. We'll stand first ball bowled. First in the. So you have to start our trials. So you have to start all over again. So be careful. There's a touch me not. This button is there. So therefore, if you click, then you have to compulsorily do the certification then. So please be very careful whether certification required or not required. Then for small companies, now the definition of small company, please check correctly. You know what everybody are seeing? They think small company means only based on the capital and turnover. Wrong. Even if your capital is less than 2, even if your turnover is less than 20, still it may not be called as a small company, because if you're a holding company, you're a subsidiary company, you're a Section 8 company, they're all excluded from the definition of small company. They're not even called as a small company. So therefore, turnover and capital is not the only criteria for what is a small company. There are certain exclusions from small companies. So please ensure if you're coming under exclusions, you're not a small company at all. So holding companies, subsidiary companies are never called as small companies. So please check that also. Then come to checklist for e-form certification. For every form, there will be a separate checklist. Yep, we will take it. Thanks.
This again, all of the forms, what to file, you already know. We are giving some practical takeaways so that you're careful when you're filing these forms. For every form, there'll be a separate checklist. So general checklist of certification is provided below. So when you see the form itself, you'll know what are all the things that you're supposed to tick and everything. Here, what we are telling is a blanket thing. So engagement letter is executed. Make sure that you have an engagement with your client and what work you're doing, it is already executed. Because when you read the form and what you certify, this particular language is used. So therefore, please do not do any work with without a signed proposal. And let your engagement letter be 1 page. That is good enough. But please get it signed and then only do it. We use something called Pepilio in our office, and that we are able to open a service only if the engagement letter is signed by the client. Without a proposal approval, we will not even permit anyone to work on it. So make this as a mandatory thing before you start any work. Uden is generated. So for all CAs, this is one strange thing. For whatever I'm using my DSC for, as in the capacity of a chartered accountant, I have to generate a Uden and keep that for my records. Same thing as an IP. If I'm certifying something when I'm filing a form, that does it require a Uden? Obviously no, because not as a CA I'm signing in that. So please be clear about getting Uden also for all the forms that you are affixing your DSC on. Company has complied with SS1 on meeting of the board of directors and SS2 on general meetings. So this is a given. Like I already told you, the initial days when the teams join, when the articles join our team, we get them to read SS1 and SS2, and we have a sort of a short quiz on that to make them understand that SS1, those provisions become mandatory. Because by plain reading of the law, they will not know a few things that within 15 days of doing the board meeting, you have to get a sign off from the chairman. All pages need to be initialed. Those type of things, please follow in accordance with the secretarial standard. So this we are telling any form you affix in the capacity of a chartered accountant and it is an MCA form, please generate. So not particular to any firm. That is the practice we are following. It's a stricter view, but it's quite hard to track. Correct, correct. So you have to go by others, because even when you are giving this certificate to a banker, when you have done share transfers for a FCTRS transfer, their net worth I'm supposed to go by, and that particular drop down is not there. So most of it we go by others. And then for our reference in the description in UDI, which is the internal remarks, please put it there. This is a suggested practice. No, not mandatory to attach to the form. Relevant authority, that is the board or members, have passed the resolution and compliance of all applicable provisions this is a given. So this we don't have to break our head much. Then this is some of the reasons why we've seen it as resubmissions. The attachments that you're putting along with the form, please make sure that it is legible. Despite compression and all of that, let it become legible. And complete records maintained are updated, not just the extracts. This is very, very important. You will have a director who would have just signed the extracts and given to you. And this happened 2 years back. And today the director has gone, he's resigned from the company, but an investor has come and they're doing a due diligence. At that time, if you have to construct the board meeting minutes, it is not possible. See, in the spirit and the letter of the law, please follow that you are going to get all of the entire set of the documents, get it signed, keep it, and bill your client for it. It is fine. But the thing that we are telling is don't just go by just the extracts that you're supposed to attach in the form. Please get the full set of the documents. Law and ICAI documentary evidence for every detail provided. So typically this form, whatever you're filling, that is backed through some of the numbers. Now take, for example, you are filing a AOC 4 and every single number that is reflected in your AOC 4 is in fact there in your financial statements. So that way you know where it is coming from. So any form, any details you're filling, it has to be backed by some document. That is when the form you're filing is correct. And if this version 3 comes up, and then they are going to bring in artificial intelligence and whole lot of other things to figure out where you have done a mistake, we will be in trouble. So it is important for us that we back it up with documents, whatever we are filing. Law and ICAI guidelines have been complied before the certification. So this is a huge challenge because the articles will prepare the form. We are not so actively involved in the certification and filing of the forms that go through. At least the DSC password, do not give it to your office members. That you only fill, that you only put, you only make sure that you have verified at least the overall correction checkpoints of what the articles are doing, and then only please file the forms. Then law and ICA guidelines mandatory before certification. So one example here is the Companies Act considers only company and board corporate, which can be controlled by board of directors or has voting powers as subsidiary. So this is given under the Companies Act. Now come to the law, only subsidiary and associate companies' books of accounts can be clubbed with holding companies' accounts for consolidation purpose. Now look at the ICAI FAQ, what they've given on consolidation, provided a wider scope on consolidation of accounts detailed in the next slide. So basically what I'm trying to tell you is the Ind AS 110 consolidated statements provides that where an entity has control on one or more entities, the controlling entity is required to consolidate all the controlled entities. So on the same day which you're doing the board of approval of accounts, the consolidated entities also you're required to do. This was a case which we had missed out in the office. And in fact, the consolidated financial statements were there in the AOC form when we were selecting and filing. That time they had missed selecting CFS and it went through like that only. That then we had to go through the cancellation route. We had to get some changes done. And then much after 3 years, it had to get approved. So the CFS radio button on your AOC form is very important for you that way. Then list of forms requiring Uden generation by CA or CS. This is what I already told you. For a CA, we tell please go by all of the forms that you certify, get the Uden. For a CS, only MGT 7 and it is optional for all the other certification forms. So you were also mentioning that there is a drop down for MGT 8 also. MGT 8 is there, MGT 7 is there. That is the thing. Correct. So incorporation also, when I'm affixing in the capacity of a professional, I'm still going ahead and generating for being cautious. Okay. You're right. Correct. In our case, what we are doing is, that is right. But the name we don't mention anywhere at all, right? It's only for our internal purposes. But what we are doing is proposed to be incorporated and we have that as our internal remarks. We are still going ahead and doing it. Then comes the this is what I was talking about. Every e-form requires a DSC, and director or KMP shall be authorized through AOA or board resolution. So whoever is certifying the form, it has to be mandated because you have to mention the resolution number there when you are certifying that you need to give. Then the authorization can be a part of the subject matter of resolution of form or by way of a separate resolution. So some companies, in fact, prefer blanket authorization. So at the start of the year itself, some of the investor companies want to give the authorization to one of the directors of the company. Then accordingly, you don't have to every time pass that resolution. So make sure that you get it and do it. And you don't have to attach this in the form in which resolution, in fact, you're authorizing, but it is good governance for you to have it at your end. Raja, next is yours, where you can talk about the compliance calendar.
Okay, let's talk about the compliance calendar. This is generally taken as it's like an AMC, annual maintenance contract, wherein you'll tell the client that I will take care of all your compliance requirements and so on. And therefore, this is what we need to take care when it comes to compliance calendar. So what all we have to take care? Let me start from here. So if you see, the first thing is first board meeting of each financial year. So especially if you tell a client, I will take care of all your company law requirements. So it is my responsibility to take care of filing all the forms. So this slide becomes very important for all of you. So we call this as a compliance calendar. So number one, first board meeting of every financial year. So in the financial year, the first board meeting, ensure number one, you have to take this form MBP 1, which is for interest of a director, and then about declaration of disqualification of a director. These two must be taken in the first meeting itself. That's fine. Yeah. So this you have to take it in the very first meeting itself. Every year, many of them miss out on this declaration. So you please ensure you take it from your clients that they have to give these two declarations. One called MBP 1, that is interest of a director, and the other one is DIR 8, which is declaration on disqualification of a director. These has to happen every year.
And so the auditor, statutory auditor, has to mandatorily get this from the client. So when he is giving the audit report.
That is part of the audit report requirements. So whether the company has followed it or not is something which you will have to also check. So then come to MSME forms. I think this you are aware. The MSME forms which is there, which is basically half yearly. For 2 half years, you have to file this form MSME 1. Then form DPT 3, this is yearly returns, which has to be filed within 90 days from the close of the financial year. DIR 3 KYC, that is filing of KYC details of director, September 30th of every year. So mind you, I'm talking about every year. This has to be done on a yearly basis. Then we are talking about AOC 4, this we know. AOC 4, at least that much we are aware, so we don't have a problem with AOC 4. Now with AOC 4 and MGT 7 also, I've got 2 things to add. That is, even if the company does not hold its AGM, for whatever reason it could not hold the AGM, you still have the concept of due date of AGM. So you still have to file this based on the due date, and we call it as provisional. It's all called as provisional, and you still have to file it with ROC. And then whenever you hold the actual AGM, then again you have to file the actual ones also. So therefore, please take care of this aspect. This has to be done even if the company has failed to hold a AGM. Got it. And then of course we have our auditors, which is ADT. One, that is if there is an appointment of auditor. Again, appointment of auditor happens once in 5 years, and therefore this you will not file it every year. Every year filing not required. You file it only whenever there is an appointment of auditors. This will not be every year. This will be only at the time of appointment, whereas rest of the things, if you see MGT 7 or 7A, or it is AOC 4, DAR 3 KYC, DPT 3, MSME, and then MVP 1 and DR 8. So if you can just make note of this, I think this will be very useful, especially when you're doing a calendar compliances for your clients, right? So therefore, just ensure this is taken care, because if you can take care of this, then you can tell your client that every year we will take care. Okay, we'll also. I know. Correct. We cannot be left out. Correct. Do you know there's a lot of yoga involved in this? Do you know that? There is a yogic treatment is there in this. So whenever you clap, we say that nara nadigalu. So therefore, all that gets activated. So it's good only for us. So if you feel like sleeping also, you clap once, you'll start feeling nice about yourself, right? Let's come to this. So am I clear on all these forms? Yes, superb. So very important list of compliance related forms. Some of our friends are done. Done. Okay, done. Good. Superb. Then LLP compliances. I will not discuss on LLP compliances because this session is not for LLPs, and that too, especially if you ask me about LLP, you know that Tony will come. So I will not discuss about LLP compliances, but it is there for LLP also. So if you want to quickly write down, you can write it as Form 11, then DIR 3 and Form 8. This is from the LLP perspective, right? Got it. Good. Now, what are the important points about DPT 3? First, I think I've already told you before the break. That is, auditor has to certify. That is, a respective auditor of the company only has to certify DPT 3. That is first thing. Now, whether DPT 3 is required to be filed even for exempted deposits. Exempted deposit means you have taken some loans from a bank. Loan from a bank, it's not called as a deposit, it's called as an exempted deposit, right? So whether you have to file even for an exempted deposit is the question. Answer? Exactly. So this is what is very important. If you see here, you have to, it is attached. Very good, sir. Return of deposit and particulars of transactions by a company not considered as a deposit. You see, what is a deposit, and you should also tell what is not considered as a deposit also has to be given. So it's not just about deposits, and therefore many of them are the confusion that, hey, I don't have a deposit, so why should I file? But invariably we'll always have the other one. We may not have a deposit, we'll still have the 2(1)(c). We call it as popularly as Rule 2(1)(c), which is based on the CAD rules. Company's acceptance of deposit rules. It's called as CAD, C-A-D. But it's called as the CAD rules. So you have to follow the CAD rules. Please repeat, sir. Can you repeat? That is also nil then here. then you're right. Then if you're not even coming under the exempted deposit criteria, that is 2(1)(c), then nothing. Like for example, when you're talking about it's very close to an inactive company where they don't have any outside funding or any outside sources, nothing is there. It's all internal only. Then they don't have to file at all. Right. And this requires ROC approval. It's not a straight through process. It's not an STP. File no, it requires ROC approval. So please be careful on this one. Now MSME, I think you will have to take over from here about the MSME forms. I think that compliance calendar clear, right? Thanks.
This also most of us know already. As CA firms, it's best that we are registered as MSMEs so that we have the protection under law in case of delay in receipt of money.
Yeah, very important. As a chartered accountant, we are allowed to register as an MSME. So get it registered as an MSME so that for your audit fees, you can blame it on MSME.
Civil code on.
No, actually don't go. If you go, you'll not get that money also. So my advice is don't go. Don't go anywhere, but simply tell the client. Notice, sir, this if you are MSME, otherwise simply it has to be reported. So you will have to report, your auditor will ask you to report it in your records, then tomorrow shareholders will ask. That is how you should put a pressure. Don't go. Right, don't.
A lot of multinational company audits in that they particularly take this, then add the interest provision, everything, and then they put it that this is the due. So in our case, most of them probably are not following.
Correct. As a qualification, no? No, whether you'll be called, I will not comment on it. Yeah. Point of emphasis, right? No, he is telling disqualified. Qualified reporter, right? So,
Next year,
so he is telling next year anyway you will not be required to give audit report. You are out. Company secretary, you can give.
So in
You are from Bangalore? Bangalore? No, because for you, a lot of forms are happening. But for us, those forms are not happening. That's why I asked.
so he's not.
So many of the forms is telling, it's happening, it's happening. Wanted to understand from which place. Oh, okay. Oh, they mentioned that, is it? Maybe you have some special connect there. Correct. Or are they not mentioning only? Correct. Correct. Right.
Correct. And when we go to the PF officer also, they are telling we what we can do. So that is happening. Very, very true. Correct. Ashte, that is the standard thing.
Correct.
Correct. In this MSME form, two things we need to be satisfied with. The vendor shall be MSME registered and payment is delayed beyond 45 days. Only then you are supposed to report. So the dates, cutoff dates are 31st March and 30th September, and it's a half yearly return. PAN of MSME vendor shall be mandatorily provided in the form. If we have more than 99 outstanding dues, then you have to give it as an extra and then file the form. This is form DIR 3 KYC. It is a mandatory requirement. We know why the government brought this out, because they were not finding resident directors to issue the notices to, because the address would have changed or the phone number would have changed. That is why practically this was brought in. But we have a huge challenge convincing our non-resident clients to get an apostille and notary every time. Because whatever you do is valid only for a year. And then every year he has to go and get the apostille and notary is a challenge only if there is, because now OTP based mobile, email and mobile, through that they are doing. But otherwise, back then we found that issue. Now it is still okay. So when they introduced this, they had made it a mandatory e-form. Now through OTP, you can do it. And if there's a change in the particulars of the director, then please file a DIR 6, get that done, and then the details are going to get updated. One thing they are putting on the onus on the chartered accountant or the company secretary is they're telling you to collect the original documents. You have to keep a copy of these original documents. You have to verify, and then you should have certified. So please ensure enough precaution is taken. And some of your clients who are not here in India and outside India, at least do a video call with them, keep that video recording. I know this is stretching to the limit, but you have to protect yourself. When things are going good, you don't have to worry. Only when something hits the roof, that time, where is your protection? So these are those points. Nil fees if filed within the due date. If beyond September, then 5,000 rupees is the filing fees on this late filing of KYC. This OTP approval, then in case we don't do before September, then when we are even doing the OTP validation, I think that time also this 5,000 rupees fee is going to come. Important issues for annual filing of e-forms. Rajas, this is where you will be talking then later.
As far as annual filing is concerned, I think we all know about annual filings. That is something which we are very conversant with. So when it comes to annual filings, that is your AOC, error in the financials or any other documents attached itself. Just understand one difference here. When you file any form, was there a mistake in the form or was there a mistake in the balance sheet itself? Because mistake in the balance sheet will not come here. Mistake in the balance sheet is part of section 130 and 131, wherein either the department will rise saying that you revise your financials again, or voluntary you go for a revision of your financials. So please understand that we are not talking about mistake in the balance sheet itself. So the revising the entire balance sheet, maybe some AS is missed, some accounting standard disclosures missed, some provision has been missed, if something like that has happened, then it will not come under this category at all. It will come under section 130 and section 131. 130 raised by the department, 131 voluntarily you can ask for revision of your financials. What I'm discussing here is if there's a mistake in the form, not in the balance sheet. So balance sheet is all okay, but the form was not filled correctly. In that case, we are telling here, error in filing the form. Like for example, CFS applicable, but forgot to check CFS field in the e-form, or as per rule 10.6, if there is any error. Very good. Fantastic. Full competition. They'll be actually wondering, I think correct it is happening in this session also like this only. Okay. So if you see here, CFS applicable or not, then whether there is any error or omission in filing of information in e-form. If you find some errors in the form, you are allowed to approach ROC to allow them to file a revised form. So we have the procedure where we had asked for to ROC to. So if you see here, AOC 4, these are the important points for all of you. Number one, nature of financial statement shall be adopted. If it's audited, now this is important. Even if you have filed provisional final adopted shall be filed later again. I think I already told you that. Even if AGM is not held, but from the due date of AGM, you still file. And then once it is actual AGM happens, then again file the actuals also. Then point 7 of form which says due date of AGM shall be actual date or extended date. Due date of AGM need not always be that 6 months from close of financial year. It can also include that extended time given by ROC. ROC has got the power to give 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. He does conjuicy. Sometimes he'll give you ask for 3 months, he'll give you 1 month. And so 15 days we got for one of the clients. He said give 15 days. I said your notice get 21 days bekala month. Right? You are giving 15. When I'll give again notice and again one shorter notice for that also again. So due date basically means the extended date. If he has given you extension, that is deemed to be the due date. Okay. Right. Then SRN of ADT 1 shall be provided for the period filed. So whatever auditor appointment ADT 1 you would have filed, no, that SRN number should be incorporated here. Then form 12 of AOC form says CFS shall be required or not. Select yes if applicable. CFS is cash flow statement because we discussed about cash flow. And then in one more place, CFS is consolidated financial statements. So please be careful to see whether is it cash flow or whether it is consolidated. If it is consolidated, it is based on your holding and subsidiary records. Then you have to say if you have subsidiaries, then consolidated financial statement, you have to say yes, so that you can attach even the subsidiary records.
So one challenge here is make sure if it is yes, please choose as yes. If you do it as no, then AOC for CFS you cannot file. So that is where you have to tie up.
If you, what we are telling is, if you have selected no, then there is no way you can attach the consolidated financial statements. You can never attach only. So unless you select it as yes. Then for point number 13, it is in case the company is keeping the books of accounts and other records in electronic form, it shall be yes. So you have to check that also whether the records are kept in manual form or in electronic form. For electronic form, again, you have to go through the parameters, wherein I hope you know backup server must be in India. I mean, if you are having it in the cloud, so you have to ask the client all those questions. What questions? All those which you left it in choice in that MIS paper, no, in exams. That we'll have to ask now, right? Where is the cloud? Where is the server? Because today we only know this cloud. Male Bharata Varalva. Server we only know in the hotel and restaurants. So we should ask all those questions. Server is there. Backup is what is that? So that you have to ask. Then we are talking about reporting of CSR turnover and net worth shall be based on the previous year. That is your CSR, whether CSR applicability 135, applicability, non-applicability, mention all that. Then related party transactions, I think you have studied enough on related party today also. Then karo, yeah, abhi karo, that is tomorrow. Yeah, kya karo tomorrow, right? But karo also, if there is anything that has to be disclosed. Then MGT 7 also, there are some important points. That is pursuant to 92, that is section 92, reporting of annual return to be filed within 60 days. You know, balance sheet is 30 days, whereas annual, normally people get, you know, especially in directors, you know, the directors who are non-commerce directors, engineer directors and so on, they'll say annual report, annual return. Always the confusion, which is annual report and which is annual return. So I always tell the director like this only. I'll tell him, sir, report means it will have all the reports, sir. And the director's report, auditor's report, all reports are there. That is called annual report. That is called a report. It will have all the reports. Otherwise, it's a return. A return will not have all those reports. So that is your MGT 7. So MGT 7, I've given you one checklist here that this might be useful for you. That is, check if the company is a small company. If your company is a small company, then you will not come under 7 at all. You will come off under 7A. So please check in first whether you're a small company or not. Check if company has a website. You know this, that weird requirement is there now, that you have to update it in the, upload it in the website, and what is the link of that website, all that has to be, so you have to check all that. And then accordingly you have to mention that in the board's report also. Website there, not there. So please check that also. Verify the date of AGM mentioned in AOC 4. That is also very important, your date of AGM. And then principal business activities in form MGT 7, more than 10% turnover activities must be disclosed. So these are all minute points, but this is where issues will come up.
And these are the typical points where office members make a mistake. That's
Correct.
why we have mentioned this.
Yeah, these are the areas where normally the team makes a mistake in uploading. So you need to check all this before you give a green signal for all this. And then verify the capital structure till the year end. That is your SH7, pass 3, SH4, all that should have been taken care. I think you know all this, right? Your pass 3 is your, I used to always ask pass fail anta. Yeah, pass anta. So pass 3 is for your allotments. And then verify list of shareholders, debenture holders. Just ensure that all that is updated. Check the attendance of directors and details of meetings. This is again important. All this is part of your forms. Then check if remuneration is paid, board's report and financial statement. See, the problem is board's report will tell something. Then in AOC you have filled up something else, will become a problem. So you need to ensure everywhere it is matching. Then MGT 8 to be obtained by practicing company secretaries, that you are aware. That is, if your capital is crossing 10 crores or turnover crossing 50 crores, then you need a certificate of a practicing company secretary also. Then consequences, additional fees until the period of filing of e-form. Penalty provisions are there if we don't file it on time. Penalty provisions is very useful, very useful, especially when you have to quote a fees to the client. So this penalty, especially this is very important. Tell the client saying that if it is not filed, this is your penalties. You're talking about 2 lakhs. You're talking about for officer in default 50,000 rupees. So that is why you have to tell him the importance of what you're doing. Because otherwise he'll end up paying 2 lakhs and per OID, officer in default, you'll end up paying 50,000 rupees. Then MGT 7A, we know is applicable only for OPCs and small companies. Checklist remains the same. That is whatever checklist I told you, similar checklist only. Then to be filed within 60 days from the date of AGM or the due date of AGM as the case may be. Then we have these new forms which has come. That is your CSR 1 and CSR 2. CSR 1 is for all these entities which are receiving the CSR money. That means the charitable institutions which take the money from corporates, they should be registered with MCA, that is CSR 1. Whereas CSR 2 is for the, here if you can see I've written that. CSR 1 is registration with MCA by the receiver. That means, for example, you know CSR, either I can do it myself in-house or I can give the money to some other entity for the ongoing projects. If I'm giving it to that entity, they must be registered with MCA with CSR 1. So just ensure that if your company is giving some money, ensure that the money is given to an entity which is registered, right? And when you are giving the money, you have to take care of CSR 2 as a donor. So you should take care of CSR 2. These are the new forms which has come. CSR 1 for the receiver of the money and CSR 2 is the company which is actually spending on CSR. So please ensure you take care of these two. These are new forms which has come. And here is the annual filings of CSR 2. I've given the details. If you see here, for financial year 21-22, that is this year, 21-22, CSR 2 to be separately filed on or before March 31st, 23. Actually, the due date was supposed to be with AOC 4, but whereas they've extended the date till 31st March of 2023, but you still have to file this. So many of them don't know this. It's a new form. So please ensure you take care of this, right? Otherwise, the due date is supposed to be with AOC. And I think you know this, wherever there is no separate penalty for any form, you still have to pay according to the general penalty provisions of section 450. Right, then come to event-based forms. I'll just quickly run through some of these event-based forms. I'll just take through this. Event-based forms, you've got share capital related form that is pass 3, right? That is allotment ke liye. So whenever you do an allotment, again, we had a lot of issues in office for some of our clients. In one of the clients, what happened was there was some fractional share, in the sense that when the sale consideration was happening, majority was for consideration other than cash. That is for takeover of the business. And a small portion was because of cash, because of the fraction that was coming there in the valuation, the exchange ratio. Now we did not know what to do in allotment, whether we should put it for consideration for cash or consideration other than cash, because if you see number of shares, what happens is based on what you write, it will reflect in the master data. So by mistake, if you put it twice, it will show there is double capital there. If you show here also, if you show here, especially when you have partly for cash and partly for non-cash. So you should be really careful in doing the numbers. So what we did is, although that for that fraction part where they gave cash, we did not give them one full share, but we still wrote it as one share there, and we wrote one share less under non-cash. Why we have to do this is because in audit, you know, wherever the consideration has come in cash, you're supposed to report as an auditor, and therefore it's better to disclose that correctly wherever you received cash for the sake of allotment, because otherwise audit objection will come if you have not shown wherever cash has been received for allotment. Even if it's a small portion, you still have to mention it as cash received. At least to that portion, you still have to mention it in the pass 3. Yeah, right. And this has to be filed within. Normally, most of the forms would have been 30 days, correct? But it will be 15 days if you're talking about private placement. So for private placement, it goes by 15 days time. Otherwise, it will be 30 days time. Then what are the important points on pass 3? Date of shareholders resolution. In respect of private placement, proper categories such as individual, body corporation will be selected. Debt structure as an allotment date should be given in the form. Consideration other than cash. This is what I said. Shareholders resolution and board meeting date should be properly given. So just ensure whether it's for cash or other than cash, that should be mentioned clearly. Then SH7, I think you know it. This is about your what we call it as alteration of capital clause. When you do an alteration of capital clause where you either increase the capital or consolidation, share split, if you do any of those activities, then we're talking about SH7. Within 30 days, you have to file and ensure that you put the new class, whatever is there, and that has been taken care carefully. Buyback of shares, we used to popularly call it as BB, buyback. But people took it wrongly. I used to tell BB, they should have Kiski BB. So buyback of shares. So whenever you're talking about buyback, remember there is SH8, SH9 and SH11. So 3 different forms are there whenever you do a buyback. 8, right. 8. We have 8, 9 and 11. All the 3 has to be taken care. One is letter of offer, declaration of solvency and return of buyback. So you have to file the letter of offer and declaration of solvency with ROC and subsequently issue to shareholders. Now, this is one big mistake always it is done in buyback, that we will do the buyback and then file everything with ROC. No, you can't do like that. First, you have to file it with ROC, the letter of offer, then only have to go ahead with the buyback process. So just ensure that is taken care, especially for buyback. File a letter of offer, everything, and then subsequently issue it to shareholders offering them the buyback. Right? Then entire buyback, once it is completed, you have to again file it with ROC that you have completed the entire process. So buyback has a lot of things, especially with the calculation of numbers as to how much buyback is allowed. So that you need to still take care about the buyback requirements. That is board resolution based, 10%, 25% with shareholders approval. That has to be still taken care. Right. So for limited review financials should be applicable if buyback is proposed after 6 months from the date of closure of financial year. If your financial year is already closed and 6 months is already over, then you still have to get what is called as limited review financials. Why? Because you need to give declaration of solvency, no? That a company is solvent company. So if it's more than 6 months, you require this limited review also. Then SH9, date of special resolution of members shall be provided even though it's not mandatory if it is exceeding 10%, because more than 10% means you need special resolution for buyback. Within 10% only you can go for board resolution for buyback. Then this is about your ADDA. ADDA is your registered office, INC 22.
INC 22 is simple. Within 30 days, you're required to file, and make sure that you are getting an NOC from the owner. The registered office rental agreement is clearly in place. Please do not copy paste any signatures. You have the NOC, copy paste of signatures are clearly going to raise eyebrows, and then you will come under that scrutiny only. So please don't do that. This within 30 days, please file. And what are the important points here? The jurisdiction of the police station shall be mentioned as per the PIN code. That is one of the things you need to take care. Then copy of the utility bill shall not be older than 2 months from the date of filing. Make sure you get that. This is the mandatory attachment. Details of companies sharing same registered office shall be provided mandatorily. So when they did that INC 22A exercise, that is, they were figuring out the location, geotagging of all the places that were there at the same registered office to ensure that the company exists or not. That time they bought in all this. So if you have, now typically it's a practice like CA offices are given as client registered offices. At that time, which are the other offices in the same location we are supposed to disclose. Then NOC from absolute owner shall be mandatory, no copy paste. Effective date of change of registered office shall be the date of board meeting or after the board approval. So this effective date, go through what the board resolution says and not the date on which you have entered the rental agreement. Because the rental agreement can be a different date, but the board resolution you pass on today telling, okay, this is my registered office. So the board resolution date is what you have to enter in the form. Then the gas bill or mobile bill or telephone bill contains tenant name also. Please consider electricity bill for INC 22 purpose. So electricity bill is the accepted document for INC 22. Charge forms are your CHG1, which is relating to creation or modification. Then your CHG9 for debentures, and for satisfaction is 4. So within 30 days, you are required to file the form. So this we are all aware of. MGT 14, that is section 117. This is what Raja was telling, the dog and the tail follows. So typically we have to file these forms wherever we have special resolutions. And then those 7 points which are given under 117, 3 is what this form becomes applicable for. Please file. And this also within 30 days. If missed the due date, and then form for condonation of delay shall be filed. That is the huge challenge if you miss filing it. So what can be done first time, right? Please get it and done it, and let's do a good job of that. Then relating to auditors also, I'll only finish it off. So the relating to change in auditors, you all know that 5 years appointment is what it is when we are getting appointed for private limited companies I'm talking about. The auditor who gets appointed as a first auditor, his term will be for 6 years. So first year you're going to get appointed through the board, and then in the AGM you're going to get reappointed. Means that 5 years again you have to file the ADT1. Whether ADT1 for at the time of incorporation, after incorporation, for the first auditor appointment, whether ADT1 is required. Actually, under the law, it is not mandatory, but please go ahead and make it as mandatory, do the ADT1, because when you change the auditor at that time, you will have a challenge. So you can't get a backdated consent letter, you can't do a whole lot of things at that time from the auditor. So first auditor appointment also, we are suggesting to file ADT1. Then whether ADT3 is required at the time of change of auditors after the 5-year term, no, ADT3 is not required because ADT3 is filed only for resignation. So that time you have to file an ADT1, however. ADT1 you are required to file. Some people are taking a stand, same auditor is continuing, why should we file? No, you have to file because appointment or reappointment also requires us to file ADT1. That is the catch. This is within 15 days you're required to file. Then ADT3 also 15 days. The limit for ADT3 is however 30 days. So when you are filing ADT1, that time ADT3 of the earlier auditor you're required to add. So better ADT3 also you're filing and getting the compliance done with. ADT3 ROC is known to have sent notices if you're filing belated ADT3 resignation. If you're filing, please do it then and there and not that it happens at a later date. Some clients want an investor auditor to get appointed. They have identified who is the auditor and that time they're asking the auditor to resign. Don't do a backdated resignation at all. Do the resignation, file the form, then only move ahead with it. That is very important. And we have known in one of the cases where ROC levied a penalty of 50,000 rupees for late filing of ADT3. So that they'll call, they'll harass you, and then you will have to pay a fine also. Then forms relating to change of directors, again, appointment, resignation, change in designation. All of these requires us to file DIR 12. Important thing for you to notice, if a board has done a director appointment, he will resign at the AGM because he's an additional director. So the additional director, when you are making him permanent in the AGM, that time also you're required to file a DIR 12. That most of us miss out. If it is an additional director, make sure you have regularized that in the shareholders meeting. That is the significance of DIR 12 only. And DIR 11 by director on resignation, not mandatory. This, however, is a practice which is a good governance. So please suggest to do DIR 11 and get the resignation. The next is procedure for cancellation or modification of forms. So this is a route which you can follow where you can do it through GNL1 filing. Go give all of the documents which you wanted to be cancelled and then do it. This is a challenge when it is a funding based compliance form. So your pass-3 allows you to, once the money comes in, after you've done all the compliances, you've done the filings, then only you can utilize the funds. And assume you've done a mistake in the pass-3, then cancelling the form becomes a huge challenge because you would violate a whole lot of other provisions and 2 crore penalty and all of that is going to come. So if there is a pass-3 non-compliance and you filed it wrongly, you've got to live with it. You have to convince your investor telling, I'll give you an indemnity, or if there is a scrutiny which comes up, how you can handle it, you can do. But cancelling a funding-based form that you have filed has its own practical challenges. So the Rule 10 helps you to, Rule 10 is where you go for getting the cancellation done. And for that, practically what you need to do is submit the below documents with ROC through GLL1. The filing fees is applicable. 10,000 rupees is applicable for filing it. And that you have to pay and apply for cancellation. So, or they'll make the form defective. It will still sit on the record as a defective form. And what all you need to give is application letter stating the reason to make e-form defective and adequately stamped and notarized affidavit and indemnity. This affidavit shall be signed by the professional and the director. Undertaking shall also be signed by the professional and the director. See, because when you are filing a form and you have to make it defective, the onus would have been on the professional. So the professional also is equally responsible when we have filed something wrong. And this happened classically in one of our cases where we had filed the pass 3, assuming the money had come because the finance team had confirmed to us that the money had come. In the bank statement, when we saw the date on which we had done everything and the bank had hid the money in the bank account was a different date. So please make sure when you're filing something like the pass 3, it is adequately supported with the bank statement on the money hitting the bank account. Post cancellation, we can file fresh form with fees as applicable on the date of filing of the fresh form. So this has its own repercussions, but this is one of the ways in which you can cancel. So it is, however, still a huge headache for you to get any cancellation done. You have to keep going and visiting the ROC 6 to 8 months also is not a possible timeline for them to do the cancellation. So that is why all of the points which we've been telling is important. When we go to a client and tell this is the fees, he'll tell what compliance you're doing. You're just filing one form. So we have to tell him if you have an issue about compliance, try non-compliance. So Companies Act has a lot of non-compliance penalties and provisions. Specifically tomorrow you have that session. So it becomes important that way for us to be educated what are the non-compliances. Then resubmission and rejection of forms. Again, this is quickly we can go through. This you all know. When you have to resubmit, when it is rejected, then what you're supposed to do. There is an option for you to give a resubmission SRN. Please do that and then upload. Do not upload a fresh form. That is important here. Then please make sure that you take a screenshot of the resubmission done. Sometimes it will show that the resubmission is done, but technically we've faced issues that the resubmission has not gone through, and then they reject the form, and then whole lot of non-compliances come. At that time, we go present a case to the ROC, and we tell him, though this was not a mistake on our end, we thought that it is submitted, and we had a timestamp also of a resubmission that we had done. So in one case, we got a extension from the ROC to file the form. So that is going to be a possibility if you have the screenshot of the resubmission done. Then every form has a chance of 2 times resubmission. Incorporation forms has 2 times. Then all of the other forms that you file with the MCA, if I'm not wrong, is also 2 times. Only in very rare cases, we've got 3-time resubmission option for incorporation because the MCA themselves, CRC themselves were confused on what they were asking and what we had submitted. So we want to clap? Raja, thank you. Then forms which affect the master data, we all know what are the forms that are going to reflect on the MCA portal master data once it is filed. Once we file the 22 or 23, the SIN gets updated if you have done a shifting of registered office from state to state. Then INC 24 for company or name change, then the updated name gets reflected. SH7 is going to help you with the authorized share capital. PAS 3 is going to help you with the paid up share capital. SH7 again has the number of members. This is a public company, what we are seeing. Then the date of incorporation, of course, nothing here. INC 22 or 23 for the registered address. Email ID you can change only through MGT7. No other way you have the option of changing the email ID. So you would have filed some form with the director, old director's email ID, and you're wondering how to change it because the approvals are going to him. Then when you're filing MGT7, the email ID can be updated there. Then the AOC4 contains the date of the last AGM. So sometimes when we have filed the forms, the master data is not auto-updated. When we have filed for reduction of share capital and then when we have got the order from the NCLT and filed the INC 28, so many times still the old capital only gets reflected in the authorized share capital or the paid up share capital. That time, please go make an application physically and get the master data updated. Then post filing of the forms, if it is a STP form, then approval is immediate. We can proceed for the next step. If form is non-STP, follow up with ROC or MCA ticket if urgent for the approval. Like a PAS 3 is a straight through approval form. That time PAS 3 you filed means they can go ahead and utilize the funds. So that is that. Then with respect to records, the complete set of document relating to the filing shall be prepared. This is important as we certify regarding records as well. So this we told at the beginning itself that all of the records are updated and prepared and kept at your end. And every certification, engagement letter and MRL is required to be executed and make it as a practice will help for peer review. This is important. See, there is a huge scope for us as chartered accountants to build the secretarial practice within the team only for this, not that we are taking away business of the CS firms, only for the sole purposes that we are able to render better services to our clients. Because we've faced a lot of challenges when people have moved away from their CA and they come to us, and then the ROC filings nobody would have done, nobody would have updated. This has a scope for building a team. And today, being a CA, I head the secretarial team, and I don't even know how we build it to such a large team. It happened because one, there we saw a scope and we could build it. Definitely, you can have 2-3 PCS working with you, and as a team, we can all work and render better services to clients. Invoices and reimbursements shall be taken care. So make sure that you raise the debit notes on the client, and please get your fees. We take everything in advance and then we file the forms. So then otherwise you'll have a client not pay fees, and you would have, on top of it, you would have paid for the filing fees. That is not okay. And there is this GST challenge, because on the debit notes, if it is a 400 rupees, and when the credit card bill comes, they would have added 18%. So there is a 2.25% or 2.75%. So the credit card charges will come. Actually, you would have paid 412 or something, but you can only recover 400 from the client, because otherwise the GST challenge is going to come. We bear the credit card charges of all our clients. You please figure out how effective else you can do. Net banking, they will not. Okay. And they can only directly pay. Perfect. That's a brilliant solution. Net banking was always there. So net banking, they were not charging. At least this UPI payment, again, the client is going to pay. But your client is an individual probably, and the company will not have the option. He can claim it. Then comes the MCA ticket to raise. A lot of people go through this route of raising the tickets. If you have a issue with the forms that you would have filed, please go through, and effectively they do. Sometimes only incorporation forms, they're closing tickets without giving the resolution, but otherwise standard answer they give is go consult your professional. But some issue is there. When we would have filed a SH7 and we are waiting for approval, we would have asked them to approve it faster. That time, sometimes it has happened. So please use this link to raise any tickets. And this tickets also can be raised when you have a double payment and you want a refund of the debit note, the money that you have paid twice, you can get that. Then lastly, what do we have? The forms which are at nil fees. This is only like a trivia question. These are the forms which are at nil fees. So Spice Plus Incorporation of the company, they say it is nil fees, but you still pay that 3,020 rupees stamp duty that you pay. And then DIR3 KYC, DIR6, GNL4, and MSME form. So these are the forms which is nil fees. So with this, we are done. Ajay, you have anything to add?
Thank you all. I think it was a good session, at least for me also, to have a wonderful audience like you. So thanks a lot for being a participative audience, right? Thank you so much.
Don't have any questions? Okay. The questions we have. Sir, what is the definition of IFC? That is, shall we as auditors ask to show IFC during the year? IFC is internal financial controls, I'm thinking.
Yeah, what is the question? What is the...
When is IFC required according to me? As an auditor, what is the auditor's role for IFC?
I think that's a separate discussion by itself. We will ignore that question because that will take a lot of time.
That has only the limits,
That's
as
okay.
we spoke earlier. Is auditor certificate required for exempted deposits?
Yeah, exempted deposits, yes. DPT 3.
DPT 3, yes. And then whether MSME nil should be filed, MSME nil need not be filed.
Correct.
We already told that in the presentation.
Right.
So these were the only questions.
Thank you.
Good evening, members. It was an enlightening session, and it was not just enlightening, it was fun-filled also, definitely, which was needed for an afternoon session. So thank you so much. When I was doing my articles, my friends used to say, why, I mean, have you not attended Mr. Vijay Raja's session or classes? And they were saying you missed something. Now I realized what I missed. After so many years, now I got a chance to attend your class. Thank you so much, sir. On behalf of Bangalore branch, we extend a very thanks to you for coming over and then making this session successful. Thank you, sir. After that. Also, CA Srilakshmi, thank you so much. You gave insights into the practical issues which we face while doing stuff or filing and dealing with the Companies Act. So thank you for taking the time out for us despite your busy schedule and being here. We extend a warm, very warm thank you to you from the Bangalore branch on behalf of Bangalore branch. We have a token of gratitude. We'll just present that. I request Secretary to please present it. Thank you. Thank you, Pramod. With this, we come to the end of today's conference. However, we will continue with tomorrow. Also, there is an announcement, members, because on 21st of June, we are conducting the International Yoga Day, and this will be done in front of Bangalore Palace. Request all the members to register and participate. It's a joint event along with the Department of Ayush. So, looking forward to seeing you all there. Thank you.